It is such a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, well, it's an honor to be with you, and I hope I'm going to be able to answer your question.
You're a man that wears many hats.
So they say.
Yes. You have been a majordomo yourself.
Yes, I have.
You own and manage and run a Butler school, and I believe it's the only official school in North America of its nature.
It is. It is.
And you are an author.
I am.
And you do several television appearances as an expert on etiquette.
I do. I have a busy schedule.
Yes, you do. So how has your world been affected by COVID?
The book world is just continuing because as an author, a lot of that work is by yourself or, with someone who's researching. Television obviously came to an abrupt stop in March because of COVID-19. We're now taping from our homes. The Academy is obviously closed right now.
How did you get into this industry?
I actually got into it by accident. I was in the catering business, and although we were successful, I realized it was time to move on. And so I mentioned to one of Canada's families that, every Canadian knows and loves, who was a client of ours. I just said, I'm thinking of moving on. And the lady of the house, she said to me, well, I'd like you to be my butler. I said, be your butler. She said, oh my God, Charles, I think you'd be great. So I said, well, let me think about it. And so I went home and I called my mom, and my mother said, absolutely not. Don't do it. I said, really? Why? She said, I don't want you to be a servant. I said, well, I promised to think about it. And she said, okay, you think about it long and hard. But a minute and a half later, I picked up the phone and I said to the lady that I would take the job. So I did that for 7 years. And then I finally called my mother to say, Mom, I think it's time to move on, leaving the job. And she said, oh my God, don't do it. I said, what do you mean don't do it? You never wanted me to have the job. And she said, oh my God, I think it's the best job you've ever had and you're happy. And so I said, well, I'll think about it. And so I hung up the phone and I thought about it. And a minute and a half later, I handed in my resignation. Mr. and Mrs. were working, but there was 4 kids. And so, there was always someone that had to go to a swimming lesson, somebody that had to go for skating lessons, someone that had to go for something somewhere. And so they're running around driving everybody and, making sure the groceries are done and the plumber comes to open the pool. And that's one sector of the market. And the other part of the market is where you go just the ultra rich. When they have multiple homes, the homes are big and they're commercial buildings. And so it really takes a lot to manage them.
I've seen quite a few videos of you being interviewed. Something that strikes me is your unflappable nature to be gracious and even charming when at times, in my opinion, watching the segment, someone may have said something that I perceive to be a little bit, offsides.
There was a butler that I worked with for another member of the family that I worked for. And he used to say to me, ours is not to question why, simply just to do or die.
Oh.
A good butler isn't making the situation about them. You have to kind of really think about what is it going to accomplish if I hit this head on? Mm-hmm. Or is there a way that I can just graciously move on and get yourself out of it without actually saying anything? But I try to be gracious as much as possible. But trust me, I'm only human and there's days it doesn't quite work.
I have to tell you, I've read this cover to cover. I don't twice.
Wow.
Yeah, and I don't know if you intended it that way, but I thought it was thoroughly engaging.
Well, an author always hopes their book is going to be engaging. We don't always succeed, but we hope it's going to be engaging.
But if I may quote you.
Yeah. Yes.
Etiquette is not a set of classical rules for the rich, famous, and snobby. Rather, it's a way of understanding other people and having consideration for their needs.
First of all, I think that people sometimes think of etiquette as something very static and a very hard rule. So etiquette needs to be a living, breathing document that changes over time as society is changing. It was Letitia Baldridge, who was the social secretary to Jacqueline Kennedy when she was in the White House, who taught me that etiquette is about how you interact with your family at the breakfast table, how you talk to the bus driver on the way to work, how you deal with the coworker in the cubicle beside you. I think here we are in 2020 with COVID-19, and so this is, I think, one of those times in history that etiquette has to change.
So in the meantime,
yes,
before it's safe to do that again,
yes,
within a traditional business setting, what would you recommend would be a safe option?
In America, it's becoming very popular to do the elbow, bump. In Europe, they're tending to do, by the neck. And in Asia, it's the neck. If you could take charge of the situation and make the first gesture by saying, it's really nice to meet you, and kind of doing something. Okay, I'm not going to shake your hand, but I'm acknowledging who you are and that we're greeting and that we're going to have an interaction. If you were to put your hand out to go to shake my hand, I would say, oh, thank you very much. But to protect both of us, let's not do that right now.
Zoom office etiquette.
You are at the office in that Zoom meeting. You're not in your living room just talking to your friend Sally or Bill or Mary or your mother. Mm-hmm. So you actually need to think about what is behind you, and you need to try to be in a space that's quiet. People are actually noticing and looking at people's homes and saying, yeah, oh my God, look at that lamp. I can't believe she has that lamp, and they're focused on that. Or, there's, some pictures that are maybe inappropriate, or you're in the kitchen and there's the dirty dishes that are in the background. People still judge by looking and appearances.
How am I doing?
I think you're doing great.
Okay.
No dirty dishes. So introductions are the hardest thing because everyone goes backwards about how to make a correct introduction. Happy birthday to you is the right way to do it. Mm. You too is the rock band, and that's the wrong way to go. Mary, allow me to introduce to you my colleague Bill, who works in the accounting department, who's going to help you with this project that you're working on. What you need to try to figure out who is the most important person, who's the least important person, so you always introduce the least important person to the most important person. If it's a client and a colleague in your office, even if the colleague is the president of the bank, the client, out of courtesy, will always have a place of honor, and you would introduce the president of the bank to the client. Or is it by age? You're going to give the elder person the place of honor, so you can introduce the younger to the older person. And socially, if there's no distinction, men are still introduced to women. Women have the place of honor. But in business, men and women are 100% equal. And lastly is, remember when you're introducing two people, I need to say, why am I introducing you to Bill? So now you have a starting point and what you can start to talk about. People might say to you, why didn't you answer your phone? I know you're home. It's okay to say, you know what? I was having some dinner with my family. I was having some quiet time. I was watching a movie. I was in the bath. It doesn't matter why. I just wasn't available.
With regards to handling cash after we are allowed to go back into the salons, how are we?
Yeah.
I can't even talk about it.
I can't wait.
Are people going to want to receive cash?
I think for me, what I would do is I would put some money in an envelope ahead of time. And I don't know if people will be more comfortable with that, but the only reason I think potentially is because fewer people have touched it.
What do you do for fun?
Oh my goodness. I'm obsessed about canning, and I can everything in sight. Fruit or vegetables or jams or sauces, chicken stock, chicken stew or a beef stew or a vegetable stew. I have a great stew, and it's an obsession. It's not a hobby. It's not a passion. It is an obsession. And everybody in my life goes, oh my God, here he goes again.
What's your best thing you can?
Marilyn Dennis said to me the other day that she thought the best thing was my roasted tomatoes. And I got that recipe for the chef Lynn Crawford.
What are you going to do when you get out of COVID?
The number one thing that I want to do is to spend time with my mother. What are you going to do?
I would love to be in a room with musicians making music again.
And I think it's great to be able to think about what it's going to be.
Yes, I think so too. It has been a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Oh, bless. Well, I certainly hope that the day to see your mother is not far away.
I do too. I look forward to speaking with you again.
Okay, thank you.
You will.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.